Call the meeting in order at 7:04. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Which flag's over there? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion, changes, anything? Are we good with it? Okay, all in favor?
I thought you were raising your hand.
Oh, sorry, I was ready to
You were
go for
quick.
approving.
Okay. Any public input or announcement? I don't have any.
I have not heard of any. Nope, okay.
Okay. And can I have a motion to have an approval of the minutes from 10:02?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any changes on it? Alterations, edits? All right, all in favor? I can't see everybody. Thank you. All right. Raise them high above your heads because I can't see. Okay, so on to Shrewsbury update.
Thank you so much for coming all the way up the mountain to be with me today up here at Shrewsbury Mountain School. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, I'm Kristen Simonetti. I'm the principal here. But I also wear many hats in the district. My first love and passion is music, and I teach the high school vocal music classes at Mill River, and I'm the fine arts coordinator pre-K-12 for art, music, and theater. Thank you so much to the people who were brave, who went out in the dark. I wasn't anticipating that our days would get so short so soon, but thank you for humoring me and going out and seeing our baby orchard that our third and fourth graders tend. And also our compost bins were just completed by one of our collaborating organizations, Sage. You'll see pictures of that and things like that. Can you guys see my screen? All right, I'm just gonna go. So actually, this is my third time presenting as principal of Shrewsbury Mountain School, and last year you were here almost at the same exact time. And I just want to take a moment to, this is just, I'm going to go through an introduction just of us and what Shrewsbury stands for, things that we're really proud of, and then our goals. We shared a school goal with you last year, so I'm going to reflect out on how that went and share with you our goal that our educators have set for this year, and our strategies and how they worked last year and how we're going to try to continue to improve them this year, and our mission of sustainability. So aren't they so cute? So this is two students in our garden. I was just down there in the dark with my tour. And Shrewsbury Mountain School really prides itself on three really important things, or things that we really feel are valued, which is academic excellence, outdoor learning, and sustainability. A little brag fest. Shrewsbury Mountain students this year, we have 72 strong. We have many student athletes. It was really tricky to get you some stats about the percentage of students that participate in athletics, because not only do we have students participating in MRUUSD elementary athletics, but we also have students who participate in things like RAHA, like hockey. They participate in rock climbing. They participate in local athletic things in our area. And my estimate is that we have about 65% of our student body participating in athletic activities outside the school day. Shrewsbury is also known for being hugely arts focused, and so we have awesome student musicians here at Shrewsbury. Currently, our 4th through 6th grade, it only has 32 students, and 30 of them are enrolled in band. Miss Jennifer DeKalb is our new band teacher. She started last year, and the energy around band is hot right now, and everybody wants to play a band instrument, which is really great. Mr. John Stratton is our chorus teacher, and we have 25 students signed up for 63% of our students in chorus. But art and music classes are very well loved and very valued here at Shrewsbury. Another really unique thing that Shrewsbury does is we do something called book buddies, where older students partner up with younger students and they read to them. We also have something where students who are doing like sustainability activities will match like 4th graders with kindergartners, and they'll actually be mentors. They'll walk students through like doing steps of planting a plant or digging a hole or building a relationship, and they'll model those things for those students. And so we have multi-age learning at Shrewsbury is something we really value. Students all eat lunch, kindergarten through 6th grade, in this room all together at multi-age tables that rotate every 6 to 8 weeks, so every single student gets to eat with every single one of their schoolmates, kindergarten through 6th grade, which is really great. So our students are super well-rounded. I just want to say a huge thanks. One of the things that comes back to me from my educators all the time is they are so grateful for the coordinated curriculum that Jody Stewart-Ruck has coordinated, all the way through, and they're really, really grateful for time. Last year, their PLC times were grade banded, so they would jump on a Google Meet, and so all the 3rd grade teachers at all 4 elementary schools were able to work together and just be able to kind of find strategies that would work for their grade band. So I just want to thank you as the board for continuing to put funding towards our coordinated curriculum. Our teachers really, really need it. They are thrilled, it's like Christmas time when the boxes come in. It's like the mystery science kits are here, and they're like, it's science time. And it's a huge, huge support for our teachers who already have such a big lift in preparing multi-age and scaffolded instruction, especially a multi-age classroom. So I just want to say a huge thank you to you, and please continue to do everything you can to support the coordinated curriculum pre-K-6. We also are super proud at Shrewsbury. I have deemed EST the huge hug of support. And so when I came here a couple of years ago, I noticed that teachers didn't have adult-sized chairs to eat their lunch in, or like a collaborated place to be able to gather. And so I took an old rustic dining room table out of my barn, and I put it into the office, put a tablecloth around it, and said, everybody just needs to eat in my office. And around that table, teachers they're all our students, and so they're able to just collaborate with one another, and we bring parents in and bring the experts in our district in when we have EST meetings, 504 meetings, IEP meetings, so that students get all of the hug of support that they need to be successful. One of the people that's pinnacle in making that happen is Lindsay Kudermarsh, who is our special educator here. She carries the entire caseload of the building, and she's also our EST and 504 coordinator, and her organization and expertise is absolutely imperative to our success. So I just want to highlight that here. So our goals. So last year at this time, I stood in front of you and we set a progress goal as our Shrewsbury educators. And in 2024 spring semester, we made significant progress toward that goal, which was students will engage with new curriculum implemented by the teachers in order to make progress toward their individual proficiency goals. Shrewsbury Mountain School students made significant progress last year towards their individual proficiency goals. There was definitely huge growth happening in our students. We want to make sure that we can see that data a little bit more long term. So that led us to reflect at the beginning of this year about how can we take that goal and how much progress we made towards that goal and set a new goal that really is data driven. So we really want to collect and analyze data that can create plans and strategies for even stronger student success. So our goal for this year is SMS teachers will analyze assessment data to identify areas of growth and brainstorm potential recommendations and actionable steps. We know that when we look at data, it's a very slow process. We want to look at it longitudinally and all the way across, and we want to travel data through one student from their kindergarten years all the way through 6th grade. And so this year, our focus is really trying to take a deep dive into that data. And one of the opportunities that's, I think, really, really genius design from Brian and Jody is that this year, in contrast to last year's grade band PLCs, we're doing building-based PLCs, where we're going to be able to work together as a multi-aged team and really dive deep into our buildings data that's specific to our students and really figure out like what's going really, really well and why, and how can we replicate that in other areas, and what's weak and why is it weak, and how can we create new strategies to be able to scaffold that learning so students are performing better. So last year I shared with you that we had 3 strategies in which we were going to try to meet our progress goal, which was teachers really diving deep into these new curriculums and being able to give that knowledge to the students in a really, really effective way. So the first strategy was collaborating in PLCs with curriculum work with that grade band of teachers that I talked to you about before, and that was extremely effective. Our second strategy was that I was going to provide class coverage for that teachers could see the grade level above them, the grade level below them, and try to really be able to accurately scaffold those the rigor of their curriculum and be able to do it effectively. We found that teachers were really so invested and so kind of like intensely diving into the curriculum that I didn't cover too many classes. We want to do that in a much more systematic way this year so that teachers feel like they can access me in a little bit of a better, like we'll create a system where they can sign up as opposed to like, oh, when I think about it, Kristen, can you come in? We made it too casual. It needs to be more regimented and like have a system. So you'll see that when we go to our next strategies for this year. And we were analyzing data from STAR 360 and Math and ELA to measure those individual student growth goals. Okay, and all 3 of those things happened. We just were not super pleased with how much I was able to cover classes and be able to do that, and we wanted to refine that for this year. So this year, we have 4 strategies. So we're going to implement all of that incredible grade level curriculum work from PLCs last year. So they were able to be together, they were able to share tips and tricks, they were able to really be able to refine their practice, and this year they want to implement that into their classes. The second is that we're going to leverage that building-based PLC so we can view our data and collaborate together. The third thing is that I will cover classes and we're going to create like a sign-up system. I'm here all day on Thursdays, so we basically were like, all right, if Kristen can cover a class every single Thursday, we're going to be able to get everybody through in first semester and also second semester to get kind of a viewing of what's happening in the beginning of the year, what's happening at the end of the year. And the last strategy is analyzing our data from TS Gold, which is preschool, and our STAR 360 literacy data sheets from Julia Wyman, who is our interventionist and ELA teacher here, and special education assessments to really dive deep and to make sure that we can kind of create and brainstorm what are we seeing that's really strong and how can we replicate that, and what are we seeing that might be some weaknesses that we can really lean in and try to make those weaknesses stronger. So sustainability. Here at Shrewsbury, sustainability is to act in a way that shows awareness of how all things are connected and to empower people to make well-considered choices for the current and future environmental, economic, and social needs of our communities. Our kids really embody this. Like, they do this when they help each other open their milk carton next to each other at the cafeteria table. They do this when they hold doors for students ahead of them and before them. They do this when they read to their book buddy. They do this when I see them picking up litter off the ground and asking me to throw it away inside. Like, there's so many ways that they embody sustainability, and our teachers are super committed to kind of making this mission just naturally and organically flow in the fabric of everything that they do. This is just our mission statement. It's a lot, it's very little writing, but our mission is to build a foundation for lifelong learning and citizenship in a global world. And these are just the things that we are responsible for that you can look up on our website or whatever. But here's our garden. Look at these beautiful smiling faces. So these are some gathering baskets that we were just able to purchase, and our students were able to go through and harvest this year. This is Miss Melissa, who's reading a story to her pre-K students in the garden, and they made sun tea this year, and they really, really loved that. They actually served that last week to a tour of people who are coming to see what we're doing with our garden. And there's just been so much fun. The students love learning in the garden. This is just one of our outdoor classrooms. We have two separate outdoor classroom, actually three separate outdoor classroom spaces. We're super excited that our older students have like portable seating to be able to kind of go out and have their own seat out there in the woods and be able to do more learning outside. That's a new purchase with some of the outdoor ESSER fund money that was gifted to Shrewsbury last year. So outdoor learning is a huge part of our day. We also went outside and toured the garden. These are all these little hands putting these trees in. Our 3rd and 4th graders with Miss Levins, our 3rd and 4th grade teacher, they work together with David Fretz, who is one of our SAGE collaborators, and they are very, very serious about tending to the orchard and making sure that their friends do not play ball too close to the trees, and they're very invested in picking the beetles that like to come out in the spring and eat the leaves off of our trees, and they've even made signs last year like, please stand back and do not play ball next to the trees. They take their role in this sustainability mission really seriously, and our 3rd and 4th graders are super excited about continuing to measure how much these trees grow over time. Our big news is that our compost bins were completed by Stephen and Scott. They are our SAGE collaborators. We went down and saw these bins on the tour. Stephen and Scott are coming in to meet with our 5th and 6th graders, who are going to be the students responsible for like guiding our school through the composting process. They're going to be doing a lunch guest talk with our 5th and 6th grade on Friday, just kind of getting the hype ready to go that we're going to start this journey of composting together. So we're very excited. Thank you so much to Sage for these beautiful compost bins that we're going to be using. And one of the things I'm so proud of is last year we did a harvest festival, and this year the teachers like ramped it up. It was amazing. It was amazing, amazing, amazing. It was 2 hours at the afternoon of September 26th, and Miss Julia Bonifine is the sustainability teacher leader. So she was like the lead educator around the design of the festival. So the first hour, students were all in the gym, and every class used our cooking carts and cooked something that the whole school could try. And so this is one of our, like these charts here on the wall, they put stickers of whether do you like it, do you love it, or do you have to try it again? So every class made something, and the whole school got to try it, and in their they had a passport where they had veggie stickers, and every time they tried a new food, they were super brave, they got a veggie sticker in their passport. So we had, the first activity was here in the gym, and then every teacher did a craft, like a harvest craft activity, that were spread out all over the building, and students were able to kind of free range with voice and choice, pick where they were going to go and do a craft, and when they were done with that, they could pick the next place where they could go. There was so much peer mentoring happening with younger students pairing up with older students completely without an adult asking them to, just guiding them through all of the crafting steps. And it was really, really beautiful representation of what our teachers can do with some time and creativity. And that's my team. And we just welcome your feedback. As our school board, we would love to visit, have you ask questions. We would love to have you be involved, and I really welcome what we can do better as an elementary school. And thank you so much for listening tonight. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yeah.
Is your compost bear-proof?
We will find out. It's very strong. It's very strong. So we are hopeful.
I have that problem.
It looked very well built on the tour.
Okay.
When you have the right recipe, it's not supposed to attract any wild animals to it. So we have very good mentors that are walking us through this process, and we have like specific parts of additives that come with composting so that the chemistry of it all goes together and isn't attracting any wild animals. That's the hope. I mean, Shrewsbury has a lynx too. You never know, but hopefully it's strong.
Hopefully just moving through,
Yeah.
going north.
Okay.
Wrapped around there for the rodents.
Yes, Nick?
Thank you for the presentation. Absolutely love how you integrate the indoor and outdoor aspects. Always been a fan of that at Shrewsbury. The coordinated curriculum, love how you continue to add that, so that's good for the board to make note of. The sustainability mission statement, in my personal experience, the sustain is always the big one, whether it's a kid or a teen or an adult. How does that, I know you're still early in it, but how does that play into keeping it going?
I think that one of the things that's really been something I'm reflecting upon is that our students are seeing adult community members come into our inner circle and help us. And so when they see that, I think that they're seeing adult models of how they, as they grow through what they're learning here and have those foundational skills and are starting to be socially aware, and how they can, what their choices impact the world around them and their community around them. Hopefully they'll carry that through their experience at Mill River, and then they'll remember that those adults came back and invested in them, and they will become adults that will then invest in their communities. And I think that we sometimes underestimate the power of just coming alongside a child as an adult mentor and saying, I care about you, I'm spending time with you, and as an adult, I'm modeling what you could do when you are grown up.
Yep.
And so, and I'm already seeing that. So we also had our fire safety presentation by our volunteer Shrewsbury Fire Department on Tuesday, and 2 giant Mill River High School boys were there in their full fire department gear, and they were all the way through. And so they also had big firefighters that stood next to them that showed them when they were in 2nd grade that they could be a firefighter. And I think it's that circle of community that's so beautiful, and I'm trying to find ways where I can just kind of shine the light and really recognize those moments, because that investment is so beautiful and so powerful long term.
Thank you.
I love that phrase, our future neighbors. So thinking about our students, and are we preparing them to be our future neighbors? And I think you captured that really well, Kristen. That's an investment.
Yeah.
Sometimes we talk about it being a cost, but I think it's an investment.
Well, and I think that it's one of those things that the students who come here love to come to Shrewsbury Mountain School. There's a huge sense of pride, and I think that our families really feel heard and that we're partnering with them. And I think that's also another connection of children to adults to community members that is really important, is that we feel like we're all in this together. And that it takes a whole village, right, to raise a child. So thank you so much for giving me the time. I am really welcome your feedback. If you're going home tonight and you're like, wow, I just realized I really wanted to ask her this, or if you'd like to come and, shadow me for a day and see multi-age lunch and see how it works here at Shrewsbury, if you'd like to come and check up on us in a month or 2 and see how composting is going, I just welcome you at any time, and just feel free to pick up the phone or send me an email. I really want to grow as an administrator. I have an incredible mentor and an excellent supervisor who have really invested in me over the past 2 years, and starting my 3rd year, I just really want to be able to refine who I am as a leader and make sure that Shrewsbury has the very best in front of them. Yes,
Kristen, thank you.
Thank you.
And just continue to let us know as board members, where the opportunities are. We were just talking community engagement committee, we want to try to show up as best we can at events that you would love. And it doesn't have to be I'm a board member, but it could just be where are the things that you'd love to invite us to, and just let us know.
All right, well, we do have a pretty epic trunk or treat coming up on Thursday afternoon, so if you'd like to dress up and hand out candy, no, I'm just, it's Thursday the 31st. 2
that
weeks.
would make more
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
So, you're welcome to on any of the things. I think you guys get my Friday principal update email, so just pop in. I would love it. I would pick up the phone and be like, hey, I'm coming to trunk or treat. I'd be like, awesome. Do you want to hand out snack, or do you want to be take photos for me in the trunk or treat line? The community takes it super serious. We had 31 cars decorated in trunks last year, so please also just feel free to also jump in. But I would love to invite you to any things that we have.
Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so on to classroom size.
Okay,
Which we all have the slide.
Yep. You have two documents, and they're just two PDFs, and we'll attach these in the minutes, so they'll be there if anybody wants to reference them. So annually, about this time of year, we talk class size and we talk enrollment analysis. So I'm going to start with the FY26 budget prep enrollment analysis. So the way we do this is we take our current student numbers and we project out what we believe our student numbers are going to be next year. I put a little note at the top of this in green so that you saw those choice numbers and tuition numbers that I mentioned to you the other night. We have 18 public high school choice out students and 14 public high school choice in students.
I have just a quick question about that. So what's the, I know there's like a set number that you, what is that set number that you can't go?
I think we've set it at, most recently, 40 and 40. 40 in, 40 out.
But the difference, isn't there like,
Oh, there's not. There's
so you could
not.
have 40 out and 0 in?
Yeah. So that's a really interesting conversation we have in maybe end of January, where we set those choice numbers for the following year. I think by statute, we have to have that done by February 1 or something like that. That is a budgetary consideration, because if we happen to be in a scenario where we had, say, 30 students in and no students out, we would not get any funding for those 30 students coming in. So that would, in theory, stretch our resources at the high school level a little bit. You've got, you know, a little over a class full of students coming in, and you have to find a way to fit them in your schedule. So when we have that conversation in January, we tend to use high numbers, and we've tended to use high numbers because the time that I've been paying attention, we haven't run into any issues. We've always had a pretty close in and out number. So when you talk about the difference of 4 students, I don't think that's enough of a budgetary swing to limit those numbers too much. You know, those are some wonderful things that can support our arts programs at the high school, or our athletics programs. You know, some of those students coming in help those programs be stronger. So there are trade-offs. So there are budget pieces, but we also know that having more students in the building can help us do more. Even if it doesn't support us financially, having that critical mass of students can support some of the activities that we're trying to do. Does that help? That was a good question. Tuition students, we have 67 tuition students. So those are 67 students from the region where they do not have a designated high school, so their town sends tuition dollars to us for those students. That's a number that supports our budget a lot. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
No, you're fine.
So that does not, that 14 is not included?
No.
Okay.
So the really interesting thing about the public high school choice program in Vermont is that dollars don't follow students. For better or for worse, dollars don't follow students. Tuition students, those dollars always follow those students. So they are not exercising choice to go to a school that's not their designated high school. They just don't have a designated high school. So the dollars have to go somewhere. But for example, like public high school choice, if we have a student that chooses to go to Rutland, the state sends us the money. If there's a Rutland student that chooses to come to us, the state sends Rutland the money. So when your numbers are kind of close, it all kind of comes out in the wash. But those tuition students make a big difference for us in being able to offer as much as we can offer, which sometimes we wish we could offer more, but those tuition students help us offer what we can actually offer.
Brian, so students who choose to go to like MSJ, they're not included in these numbers
No,
at
because,
all?
correct, they're not accessing public high school choice, they're just not enrolled in public schools.
Right.
Yeah, good question.
Where, like, 67 is surprising.
Yeah.
Can you break down a little bit? I mean, I know not exact,
Yeah.
but
A chunk of those students are going to be Middletown students, but then a big piece of that number is really Ludlow, Mount Holly.
yeah.
when their high school closed down that direction, we got a lot of students coming our way. I think more than other high schools got when they looked around in the region and they decided, are we going to go east or west? So I'd say the bulk of those tuition students really are those Ludlow Mount Holly students, which came at a really important time for us when you look at enrollment numbers. That supported our budget, when was that? Maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's right in that
Well,
time.
then when you look at it geographically,
Yeah.
you know, it's interesting. Mount Holly isn't far from Shrewsbury.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
And
Rutland's not far from Rutland Town either.
No. And Ludlow's the same, depending upon
Yeah.
what side of Ludlow you live in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because their high school's in Chester, which is, that's
Well, no,
a
they have
Yeah.
school choice.
Green Mountain.
No,
yeah.
Ludlow has school choice.
Right, but, I mean, it was,
It was Ludlow.
yeah, Ludlow, but they,
Yeah.
I
Black
thought
River.
Green Mountain
Black River.
Was the high school.
was Black River, so they closed that and they got school choice.
Yep.
Or they.
Well, I'm just saying the other high school
Yeah.
that would be close would be the,
Green Mountain.
Yeah,
Green
It's
Mountain.
Green Mountain.
And
guess
I'm going
that's
to be picky about words because it gets confusing fast. They didn't get school choice because school choice dollars don't follow kids. They had no designated
I'm sorry,
high school.
yeah, no
Sorry,
designated.
and I'll be
Yep,
nitpicky
no,
because
it's good, you gotta do that.
dollars matter.
Yep,
Good, good questions, discussion. So I think worth knowing that if you look at our numbers, I give you the 24, 25 numbers by school and by grade, and then I total them. I give you the projected 25, 26 numbers by grade and then total them. I show you the change per school projected, but then I show you the total change projection all the way down at the bottom. I want to tell you how we get that projection. What we do is we take our pre-K through 5 students at Shrewsbury, for example, and we just shift them up. We move them up a year. So all the students we know we have enrolled in Shrewsbury through 5th grade, the 5th graders move up to 6th grade and all the way down. And then we talk to Sarah Bolster, who does our pre-K coordination, and we ask Sarah, hey, what are your predictions for pre-K students next year, new pre-K students at Shrewsbury? And that's how we get next year's projected Shrewsbury enrollment. So really, it's about those incoming pre-K students. That's the big variable that we're not as sure about. Sarah does a great job about connecting with towns and looking at the register, seeing who's been born, doing the math, and figuring out when they're going to be 3, so that she has numbers that are pretty reasonable. There are always some big variables because families may choose private pre-K. The state has a universal pre-K program which allows families to access private pre-K and have it paid for. So whether a student enrolls at Shrewsbury for pre-K or goes to a private pre-K program, the state does fund that. So sometimes Sarah's tracking the numbers, but she doesn't know if they're going to enroll at Shrewsbury or not. So she can make some educated guesses, though. Yep, go ahead, Andrea.
So does she also factor in, we might get a lot of pre-K from like Rutland because they don't have a pre-K, and then we might have to take them back out when it comes to 1st grade, because then they would go to,
Yeah, good
so
question.
does she factor that
So-
part in there?
So I think she's kind of doing 2 things. She knows we're kind of going to lose some, she knows we're kind of going to gain some.
Yeah.
So I think similar to our choice in and out numbers, she's watched it long enough that she has a good sense of making that guess. She pays attention to those trends, you know, I mean, she'll tell me, hey, this year we have no kids out to universal pre-K, or hey, this year we have a couple, or last year we had a couple, this year we have a few more. I see a little bit of a trend coming up, so she's trying to guess that as best as she can. Those numbers are a little bit high this year. So her estimates are a little bit high, so we might see a little bit of a bubble coming up. Now, you talk about declining enrollment across the district, across the state. And we have these conversations lots of times where we say like, well, why don't we just try to get more students in district? I think the challenge when we talk about declining enrollment is it's not as much about getting students in district as it is about year-to-year birth rates. So when we look at this projected enrollment and we see a decline, that decline is largely based on graduating a high school senior class and the size of the incoming pre-K class. The stuff in the middle doesn't really affect it quite as much. We have students come, we have students go. We have students in, we have students out. And over the years, we've seen that be fairly stable. COVID, we absolutely saw some blips and some trends that did not, weren't historical trends and haven't shown up again. So we did have some years where there were some losses of students that I think were a little larger than just your declining enrollment trend. This is interesting because you'll see that this year our projected change in enrollment for next year is down 0.89 of a percentage point. So rounding up to a 1% decline in enrollment. So if you're talking about 800 students, you might be talking about 6 students or so, which is the smallest we've seen in the last couple of years. I gave you our previous two. We had a negative 2.3 and a negative 1.5. So interesting to see that our decline is slowing down a little bit based on the last couple of years and projections. Our numbers have stabilized somewhat, so we haven't seen a huge shift in student numbers over the last couple of years, if that makes sense. Len?
I should know this, but I don't. What's the difference between pre-K3 and pre-K4? Is that age?
Yes.
Okay.
There you do know it. There you go. That's exactly right.
Just checking.
Brian, do you have data on homeschool students in the district?
I don't off the top of my head, except I can tell you that the trend, that was one of the big trends with COVID, that
that's
lots
what-
of students went homeschool. We are, I think we're back to about a normal size.
I have
Yeah.
the report.
Yeah. You want to speak to that?
Sure, let me pull it up and I can tell you. It's been pretty stable. We get a copy of the report on a recurring basis. So, excuse me, goodness. So for Clarendon, we have 9 families. For Mill River, we have 21.
21 students, or can't you put families?
It's 21 total students. A lot of the children are from families with multiple siblings, but so 21 total students. Shrewsbury Mountain School, we have 6 students. Tinmouth has 2. And Wallingford is 21 as well. So that report, again, we get it very often, but it's stayed pretty steady, pretty stable.
And an interesting thing there, when I started seeing those reports, you know, I didn't really see them probably till 3 years ago. You probably saw them far longer
Yeah,
than I
yeah.
ever did. It just didn't make sense for what I was doing. You'll see, doing data work, there's this really funny thing where if there are 800 students and you do data work, you recognize names pretty fast
Yeah.
after a little while. We have some students who might be like a sophomore, junior, senior in high school, and I see their name on the homeschool report and I go, I don't know who that kid is. You know, so there's an interesting, I think, interesting piece of that where we've had some students who have always been homeschooled for years and years. We did see that big jump during COVID. We absolutely did.
Oh, yeah.
But we've seen that shrink back to what it probably was a little more historically. They're probably a little higher than they probably were 10 years ago, but they've shifted a little back
Are they,
down.
any of the students accessing? I know they can
Absolutely,
access
absolutely.
certain things
Yeah.
at the high school.
So is that why we have them on the numbers, because they're still saying that the homeschool, or there
Yeah.
is that, but they're
Homeschool is not a
homeschooling?
piece of enrollment.
Okay, so they're not factored into any of,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So you may have a student who shows up and they participate in art and ELA and PE, and that's it. Those students aren't on our roster as a student that we get state funding for. We
Okay.
get like a really, really tiny amount of
Yeah, do
funding
you
for
get
them.
like a prorated?
Yeah, well, I don't even know if it's prorated. I think it's so tiny that it almost is inconsequential.
Well, and there's a limit to what homeschool students can access. So like, there's only so many classes they can
Right.
access in the day, otherwise they would be deemed.
As a full-time student, okay.
And then they participate in athletics as well?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Some kids access special services as well.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
right.
so there's that too.
And extracurriculars.
Just a quick little note, Craig Hutfader is the principal at Mount Holly, and every time we have the principals and the guidance counselors come to talk to our sixth graders to kick off like all the sixth grade transition activities, they always bus all the Mount Holly kids over here. And in the library, all the Shrewsbury and Mount Holly kids are together, and I think it's really been a great bridge
Yeah,
to bring
nice.
more Mount Holly kids over to Mill River School
Nice,
District.
yeah.
So, just a
Absolutely.
quick thing we try to do.
Absolutely. So those are the enrollment trends, and it's not great news. You know, we're not gaining students, but I think as much as we can see the decline shrink from year to year, that's great, because a lot of places that's not happening. So I think we're lucky that we've had a couple of reasonable years with not a lot of decline. That helps us go into our budgeting conversations, because we go, if you look at our funding is based on enrollment. If there's a big shift in enrollment, there's going to be a shift in funding. So as we think about budgeting for next year, it matters that we know that that's a small projected decrease. If it were a large projected decrease, that would be a place where we'd say, wow, we need to think about what that impact is going to be, and maybe find the relevant places to cut back because of that. We haven't seen a year like that in a couple of years, though. Any other questions on the enrollment one? Okay, class size.
Just a comment. We talk about this every year, but birth rates equals students. We don't have to think about it too hard, but a class of 60 with a 1% fallout is way different than a class of 100. So.
Yep. Good point, Nick. So class size, you can see here that I've given you, and I've broken these down two different ways. I gave you the number of students per grade at every school, which I think is interesting to know. Shrewsbury, you will see that, for example, kindergarten has 7 students. But then I'm also showing you below that Shrewsbury has a combined K-1, and that group is 17. So I think worth knowing, so that you can see the raw numbers of students in each grade level, and that average at the bottom. And then you can see by class size. I think that average per grade level is a nice number to think about as a district, because when you look at 6th grade, 11.75, and going down the line, 5th grade, 13.5, 12.25, 14.13, 11.25, you see we have a chunk of years there where the class average actually ticks up a little bit and then ticks back down to 11, 11, 10. As you think about the district and enrollment and what the district looks like 5, 10 years from now, that matters. If we were seeing something that looked like, oh, we've got 20 students, 18 students, 12 students, 10, 10, 10, 10, you would know that a chunk of years from now, you're going to have a budget problem. So I think looking at that average per grade level gives you a sense of what's coming in the future. So while next year's projection is probably going to be far more accurate than a 10-year out projection, I do think it's worth thinking about what do things look like 10 years out. As you look class by size, I've highlighted we've got 2 small classes across the district. We've got 2 elementary classes that are 7 students each. I think that's worth identifying. We have 3 that are on the higher end. The 3 on the higher end are 25, 23, and 22. Overall average, if you include pre-K students in the average classroom size, we've got 15 on the nose. So if you take every room in the district at the elementary level, 15 kids in every room if you spreaded them out equally. If we take pre-K out, because pre-K is a little different sometimes, and we always try to have those numbers a little lower than the rest of our grades, but if you take pre-K out and you think about our K through 6, if you spread all those kids out evenly, you have an average of 15.9, so basically 16 students. If you read the news today, you will, or if you read it soon, you'll see a report where there are some folks who are advocating for a elementary classroom size of 15, which is interesting. So interesting to see that our elementary classroom sizes, at least on average, are there. I do think there's a challenge in our district where, gosh, wouldn't it be nice if everybody were closer to the average? We didn't have those outliers. If we could take the 7s and the 23 and the 25 and make those a little more reasonable, that would be fantastic. Challenge is with combined classrooms, with different sized schools, it becomes really hard to do that. A way you could do that, well, sorry.
Yeah, I just have a
There's not a great way to do that. Let me back. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Bottom line.
I just was curious, just data question before the discussion. Why is there so much unknown, like Vermont US data?
Yeah.
It's just not
Can
there.
I get there in a minute?
Oh, sure.
And I'll definitely speak to that. Part of the challenge is if you look at Shrewsbury in a class of 7, there's no good way to combine it any other way to not have one small class. Same thing at Tinmouth. There's no good way to combine it any other way. You're going to have a small class somewhere. You're not going to put 3 grades together and make it better anywhere. The challenge at our schools with our larger size classes, that you want to fix those larger size classes, the best option that we really have is you're going to hire a 1.0 teacher and you're going to split a class in half. If our numbers were 26, 27, 28, that starts to make a lot more sense. If your numbers are 22, 23, you go, well, that's getting a little high. What are we going to do? Hiring a full-time teacher to split a class down to 2 11s is a different kind of shift. So those, I think, are things that can be done. You can address those, but because of our arrangement, it's not very cost-effective to address those. Does that make sense?
If it's a trend, which right now, in most cases, it's not a trend, it's a bubble.
It's a bubble that's going to shift up into your upper grades and continue moving up that direction. Yeah. Yep.
And how much shifting goes on between schools?
Awesome question.
Because we've got 25
Awesome
in
question.
the second grade and Clarendon and 7 in the second grade in Shrewsbury. And
we looked at the numbers specifically last year, and while we saw that there were some shifts, there were not a lot of shifts that were consequential ones. In our policy for in-district transfer, we only approve in-district transfer if there's capacity, actually. So I would never approve an in-district transfer where you're going to bump, I think, into that 22 number. I don't want to do that if we don't have to. 22, we can handle 22, but I don't want to create that if I don't have to. Does that make sense? So if a class were at 21, we'd probably say no. Some of that actually helps to shift numbers in a way that work a little better, but we don't allow it to shift in a way that's problematic. We try not to.
is there any encouragement to shift in a way that is potentially beneficial? Or
That's a great question. We leave it up to caregivers to make that choice. if that's something. We have had people say, yeah, I think my student would do better in a smaller class. And we'll have conversations and say, okay, great, well, if that's what you're looking for, these are some options. Oh, you're thinking about your child going here, well, that's actually a larger class, so I don't know that you want to do that. So those are conversations that we do have with folks sometimes. They're looking for that, but that's not something we reach out and say like, hey, your class is kind of large, do any of you want to go elsewhere? We just don't. We don't do that.
So are there supplemental services for those larger classes? Do you have paraeducators or like one teacher who maybe?
Yeah, there are places where we try to support them. We always cover IEP needs first. And then when we have wiggle room, yes, absolutely. People are thinking about, and sometimes it's not the number. The 22 might not be as challenging as the 16. Depending on your makeup of your class. So sometimes it's, if a para has some time that they're not serving specific student needs, they're going to be in the classroom that needs them.
So there aren't any paras who are
general ed.
General ed.
Not anymore. Asterisk pre-K. Pre-K paras are their own thing because pre-K requirements are such that we need a para in the room. K through 6, our paraeducators are all special ed paraeducators.
Well, except your behavior interventionists and,
Fair, yeah.
Like your homeschool coordinator, those are paraeducators.
There are some folks who are not educational support staff who maybe serve some other roles. Our admin assistants would fall in that bucket too. So yeah, thank you for that, Coral. But the traditional paraeducators are all special ed umbrella now. And that was a shift that the state started encouraging maybe 4 or 5 years ago. If you read the news about the updated report that the legislature got, it was actually the initial report from this group that highlighted the shift towards certified educators away from support staff. So that would be something where you'd say, well, we could have 2 paraeducators supporting in classes, or we could have 1 reading interventionist. If we're looking at student performance, 1 reading interventionist is going to support student performance more. And that's not that our support staff folks are not valuable, it's that they serve different roles. And depending on your goal, the way they serve those different roles, you're going to make a choice depending on your goal. If your goal is improved reading outcomes, in other words, you're going to choose a reading interventionist. Does that help? So yeah, those are things we definitely think about. I have had conversations with a principal around, hey, could we get creative about if the class does get too large, say we're out of budget season and a family moves into the district and the number just gets too high, what do we do? Can we get creative and figure out a way that a couple of students could move up in math if they're ready to move up in math? So that smaller, for example, the smaller 3rd grade could have some of those 2nd graders a lot of the time to support them to even numbers out, and those are things we can do if we really need to. To turn around and hire a teacher in January because a family moves in is trickier than being flexible and trying to sort through some of those creative ways to address that. I think when you get into the upper grades, sometimes you find schools that actually do have a model where you may have a math teacher. Even though they're a 5th grade teacher, they might focus on math and teach maybe 4, 5, 6 math. So there's some flexible things we can try and do to sort through that problem a little bit. MRU per classroom, and then I'm going to answer your question, Kimberly. You'll see that this year MRU per classroom is 13 students on average. There are absolutely outliers. So if you walk through the building, you're not going to see 13 kids in every room. There are outliers that lead to that average, just like you see in our elementary schools, you've got a swing between 7 and 25. I'd say at Mill River, you probably have about the same swing, 6 or 7 to 25, 26, 27. On average, though, that puts us at 13. I looked as hard as I could to try and find Vermont data and US data, and the really tricky thing is I couldn't find any one consistent source that actually reported a lot of years. So even from, like, for example, the 16, 17, 17, 18, I got from one source. They haven't updated since 17, 18. The 2021 I got from a different source. That's not good practice at all, because those sources may have had different methodologies for coming up with those averages. That's why I put a little note there, because I don't want you to think that those numbers are better than they are, but those numbers are the best numbers I could find. I threw an extra number in here that's not on your sheet, but we'll get it in the one on the minutes. If you read that article today, they mentioned a 11.2 average for Vermont for last year. So that's a little bit of an update from 2021, where it was 12.3. So the most up-to-date Vermont number is 11.2. So we are above the average for the state. Bronson?
Can you clarify when you're saying average, do you mean mean or median?
Average, it depends on the source, and I couldn't tell you the methodology for each source. I can tell you for Mill River, that would be the median. It's not the mean, not the mode. Yeah, just taking them all and averaging them together.
That's the mean.
Is that the median?
That's the
Median. Okay.
I suggest you use median, because there are outliers, like my course class has 40, 60.
65?
Yep. Yep. Those were in there.
Yeah, my stats teacher would say,
Yep.
you don't use mean when you have
Yep.
a skewed model, which
Yep.
is.
Yeah. I think the challenge is that's not how other people do their numbers. So if we want to have our numbers line up with the way the state is publishing their numbers, I think, unfortunately, they're using a far simpler model to come up with their numbers. I hear you that it might not be the most accurate way to do it, but my goal is that we can compare it across the state, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah,
Is that-
that makes sense, because chorus, phys ed, certain
Yeah.
classes are not classroom, so maybe an average of just, I wonder what the average of just the classroom
Yeah.
size is, because you might find they're smaller. Or,
Yeah.
There's 16 course and then 6 in my,
Yeah.
there's 6 in stats class.
Yeah. The tricky thing is, I want to be mindful that we are trying to do things in a way that we're the most transparent as possible. So if I publish this with our minutes, and folks don't know that we left certain classes out, I worry that our numbers look better than they are, and, folks get frustrated. Oh, wow, Mill River's class size is like 20 on average, but the state's average is 11. If we're not comparing apples and oranges, I worry that there's a transparency problem there. So I hear you that statistically it might not be the best way to approach that.
If the state's doing it
Yeah.
wrong, you can do
Yeah.
compare it and do right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we could chart it or something, just, or show,
Yeah.
be like, here
Yeah.
are some of the larger classes, and
Yeah.
here's why, or.
Yep.
like band. I mean, you want
Yep.
everybody, the bigger the band, the better, right?
Yep.
Because if you put on the AP stats test, you get it
Yep.
wrong.
Yep.
Just let you guys do
Yep. Yep. No, fair.
Well, thank God
He
we're
was an
past the
English
age of
teacher,
being
so the
graded for
mean
anything.
median.
Well, and again, I think our goal is reporting on the numbers we have in a way that's transparent and the most understandable for the public, so that they can compare it to, what they see in the newspaper, if that makes sense. But I totally hear you that that's not the best way to model that.
I would be interested, Brian, in class sizes around the basic academic areas.
Yeah.
Math, English, social studies, science.
I could,
And I don't know what other ones people would want to know.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be interesting to know how many kids are in band and chorus.
And if you wanted to break it down, you'd find some interesting things where you'd see the difference between class sizes in ELA and perhaps math might be different.
Hey, it's a good
For sure.
project for
Yeah,
you. Do you have to do
absolutely.
projects for your stat class?
Yeah.
job. So.
You can contribute. We know it'd be done right, that's the thing.
Questions about, so that's why we don't have numbers everywhere. We really try to grab the numbers we can when we can find them. And I think interesting that puts us, I think, close to the state average, but above the state average. I think there are challenges with offerings and class size. If you say, well, why can't our class sizes be bigger? Like, wouldn't that save us money? Wouldn't that be better? You know, couldn't we cut a couple of teachers and then get our average closer to, 20, which might seem more reasonable? If you read that article, the report that they reference highlights a 25 student ideal for high schools. That would be really hard for us to do and offer the options we offer. It's a choice that the board has to make, but I think that's a really challenging choice. And I think looking at this number in the context of budget matters, because the board has to be aware that we have made choices that keep our class average lower than maybe the country or some other states. But we've made those choices, I think, to support opportunities for students at a small, middle, high. So worth, I think, chewing on as we're getting in budget season. Based on this, when we talk with the finance committee, there's not a recommendation for any cuts to staffing, because I don't think we see an enrollment change that would warrant changes in staffing, if that makes sense, as far as cutting folks. Fair enough? Questions on any of this? Any conversation, any discussion?
Thank you for putting it together. It's
Yep,
a lot
absolutely.
of numbers to
Oh, yeah.
compile.
Brian, I guess I didn't fully follow what you were saying about how this article you were referencing was suggesting an ideal of 20 or 25.
Yeah, so the theory is that if you have class sizes of 25 in a moderately sized high school, so they say, I think, around 1,000 students. If you have about 1,000 students in a high school, and if you have about 25 kids per class, you can get the most bang for your buck as far as opportunities for students and student outcomes. You don't have a lot of compromises that you have to make. You can staff well, and you can staff in a way that student outcomes are higher. The same theory for elementary was, if you have an elementary school of about 300 students and class sizes of about 15, you can staff in a way that your student outcomes can be the best they maybe could be. That's this one group's theory based on the work that they've done, and that was a study that the legislature commissioned that they do and has finally come out. So
they're saying that it's better to have a class size of 25 than a class size of 15, for example.
Yeah.
And the state's not saying that. This
No.
commission.
Yeah.
Right, but I mean, that's what their point is for, see, to me, I don't understand that. Like, why wouldn't a smaller class be
Here's the major point of it is, the dollars that you would spend to get a good education are going to be reasonable. When you cut down to 15 students in a class, you're spending
a lot more. Got it. Okay. Now I see what you're saying.
Your outcomes aren't a lot more.
It's like an
You know, if you look into ed research about class size, what a lot of class size studies have found, and you can find studies that say it's great, you can find studies that say it does nothing, but if you put all the studies together and review them all, and you do like a meta-analysis of them, what people have found through that meta-analysis is, yeah, there's definitely like a upper threshold, and there's a good sort of sweet spot, but at some point it's very, very diminishing returns.
Right, it's the law of diminishing returns.
Yeah.
No, that you answered my question. Now I understand what you're saying. I got it.
Okay, good question. Other?
Similarly, and we've talked about it in the past, and Brian can correct me, when you start to reach those thresholds, you can offer more to your students because of those efficiencies. Like right now, we don't have as many AP classes, we don't have as many extracurriculars, we don't have as many shops, as many cookings, as many, because we just don't have as much to distribute. But again, we're not 1,000 strong, we're 40% of that. So where does each benchmark reach?
And not only that, it's almost exponential, the benefits that you start to get. Scheduling gets easier. Because where if you had one person teaching 9th grade English and they could offer 2 honors sections, you're locked into 2 honors sections in your schedule of honors English, that's it. So if students can't fit those 2 blocks in their schedule, if you have a second person, they offer honors 2 different blocks. If you have a third person, they offer honors 2 different blocks. So all of a sudden, 3 people teaching 9th grade English, you have an honors section offered every single block of the day. So now you can get students in all those opportunities where we definitely hit things at the high school where we go, oh, you're going to take this AP and this AP? Well, that means you can't take that AP. Yeah. Because it's only offered this one place. So I think you get that economy of scale. That it's funny how you go from 300 students to 1,000, and it's not like your opportunities double, it's like your opportunities quadruple.
And I know one that we can pick on because we've talked about it numerous times over the last 2 years is driver's ed. Like, it's been a bear to schedule driver's ed. Everybody wants it. But how do you schedule it? Like, it's impossible.
And, you know, you hit these interesting scenarios where you go, well, one teacher's not enough, let's hire a second teacher. Then all of a sudden, all the classes are smaller. Because we didn't quite have enough of a need to schedule one full new teacher. We really needed like a third of a teacher at this one specific time during the day. Well, bigger school, you have that third of a teacher that one specific time of the day because they're actually a full-time teacher doing other things other places, you know. So to kind of piecemeal it together now is hard, and you're stuck with, you know, you can try and get really flexible with, well, let's get a halftime this and a halftime that. Those candidates are really hard to hire. They really are. So sometimes, especially when staffing is challenging and everybody's trying to hire everybody, you know, if you can find an extra full-time teacher in one subject area, great.
Would we be?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Steve, go ahead.
Would we be able to see more detailed Mill River numbers in, say, the upcoming finance meeting, perhaps?
Yes, we can. Tell me what you want to see, and we'll have to find time to work on it. Because that's not something we've done before, so we'd have to
at least
start from scratch.
At least grade by grade, like what we have for the elementary.
Well, you don't have class rosters that give you numbers, like...
They're listed there, aren't they? Grade by grade?
Is that what you're asking?
Like the individual classes often are mixed grades.
Right, yeah. I don't know if I was asking for that just yet. If we can get that.
It depends what level of detail you want. Tell me what you want so that I can get it right.
I mean, is it possible to get classes and the number of...
I can give you every single class. What I would do is I would give you a spreadsheet that's got, you know, 200, 300 lines on it, if that's what you want to see. Yeah.
A lot of work.
No,
Well, it would be, you would have all the classes and then the number of students in each class.
If you want a spreadsheet of every single class and the number of students in the class, that's easier. If you want some sort of analysis of, you know, ELA classes versus social studies classes or 9th graders versus 10th graders, that gets a lot harder to do.
Are you looking for
Does that
just
make
class size?
Yeah, I mean,
It's on the chart.
I think
7th, 8th, 9th,
I
10th,
guess I'm
11th.
interested in some detail for subject area as well.
Subject area, that's what I was thinking.
So
it depends what you want. And I could start telling you how much time it's going to take.
Okay, well, I mean, can we get something that's...
It's just, there's a lot of different, so, like, I don't know, integrated math.
Yeah, what would you
or
like to
something
see?
Like,
Yeah.
there's kids in different grades taking that, and they all have to take some form. It's either like honors math or this math, and every single kid in the school has to take that at some point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, in a smaller high school, we have far more mixed classes, where if you were at a high school that had 1,000 students, you'd probably be in a freshman science, because you'd only have freshmen in it, because you have so many freshmen and teachers that you can do that. In a smaller high school, good luck. You're gonna have a lot of mixed grade classes.
You guys worry about, like,
But are you wondering about grade level, or are you just wondering more about... Which are the classes that are the outliers?
I want to know how many people are in the stats class.
How many people are in the stats class?
6 and a half.
Yeah. So you want to know.
6.5.
So you just want to know every single class and how many students are in it?
I mean, I think that would be, I think it'd be good information to see.
Yeah. Yeah. If that's what you want to see, we can do that for sure.
Is that the 200 line?
Yep. Well, because it would be every class. If you want to see every class. Yep. Every section of every class.
Classes.
Yeah.
So, like, you have
40 times 6.
every teacher that
Yeah.
teaches there.
Okay. I mean, does that take a lot of?
That doesn't take a lot of work. That's just a big spreadsheet for you to all wrap your heads around.
Yeah, but then if you send it as a spreadsheet,
Yeah.
then we could manipulate it,
Yeah, if you want to.
sort it and
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Len, do you still have a?
Yep.
Yeah, I do. I'm waiting.
Yep. We can do that. I wonder what the finance committee decision is that would inform. Because I think
That's where my question was.
My recommendation would still be we keep our staffing level. You know, we don't decrease staff.
Okay.
I can definitely give it to you. I have no problem giving it to you, but I do wonder, what's our discussion? Are we trying to decide if we want to add staff?
See, I worked there, I know,
Yeah.
I could see where someone who hasn't been in the building
Sure.
doesn't have a good sense of the variety and the number of kids. So I think
Yeah.
that maybe,
Yeah, I'm
it's
going
just to get an overview so you know, especially when you're looking at the budget, because it's broken down by department, et cetera.
Yeah.
So then you can look and say, okay, how many classes?
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how
So
deep
that
the
sounds,
dive.
that sounds like more of a discussion than a, here's a spreadsheet.
And that,
And I don't mind
It
if,
depends on the way you take in information, I think.
Yeah,
Some people it would.
I don't mind giving you the spreadsheet at all. I don't. I'm wondering, does that inform our budget discussion in October? Because I think our budget discussion in October already has some pretty set parameters.
Well, it sounds like you already have the
Yeah.
spreadsheet. So is are there student names on it or any? So, I mean, why don't you just send it out and
Yep, I don't mind doing that.
can, and then we can, whoever wants to look at it or play with it can, and if not,
Yep.
it might raise questions, it might not.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's all you're asking for, right, is just to, yeah, and I
I just
would,
feel like I have very little context for what this 13 point
Yeah,
whatever is.
yeah, no, fair, absolutely. I can send that on, easy enough.
There's a lot of nuance in the numbers too. So like things to keep in mind are like, why is stat important even though there's only 6 kids?
Yeah.
It's like one of the only advanced math that we have. That kind of stuff is like good to keep in mind.
I do want to be mindful of, and part of the reason I ask, what's the question we're trying to answer? I want to be mindful that thinking about course offerings is not a board piece, that's a admin Mill River piece. It's not even a me piece.
is there,
if that makes
the
sense.
course offering book, is that on?
Course handbook's online,
It's
yeah. Yeah, you can
online, so you
access
can
that.
look at that.
And so that'll tell you what courses we offer, but it won't tell you how many kids are in which courses we offer. Yeah. And I have no problem giving that to you. I just want to be mindful of, if we're thinking about adding or subtracting staff, great, we can take that question up. But course offerings is really Mill River administration piece. Yeah.
okay,
Len?
so we still have Len.
Sorry. I have a couple of questions. Does the high school still require specific courses in terms of graduation credits, like 4 years
We
of
still have
English?
those graduation requirements, absolutely. Yep.
And the second is more of a statement. Having taught in schools and in Mill River, it's very, very variable in terms of number of students in classes, depending upon whether it's required or not required. I mean, at one point, in order to graduate, you had to pass 9th grade social studies. which was ridiculous, but nonetheless, so in my 9th grade,
Ridiculous that it was only 9th grade social studies. That you never had to do any more social studies after that. Sorry, I just want to be clear.
no,
Yeah.
they had to pass 9th grade social studies.
But that was it. Yeah.
No, then
No,
they have
they had to have 3 years of social studies, but 9th grade had to be one of them.
Yeah.
I had seniors
Gotcha,
in my
gotcha,
9th grade social studies
Because
class,
they hadn't passed it yet.
because they hadn't passed
I
it
got
yet.
it.
Now-
Sorry, I
Because it wasn't
definitely
on
didn't
their
understand what you
Yeah,
curriculum.
no,
Take
that's
that.
okay. My guess is they don't do that anymore.
No, it's not as set as this is the one that you need.
Well, you needed to pass
Yeah.
9th grade science, 9th grade social studies, 9th grade English.
U.S. history.
Yeah. There's no
had to
such
pass
thing
it.
as 9th grade science right now, necessarily. Yeah.
A very clear recommended sequence of courses, right? Because we do want kids to take courses in a specific sequence because all the teachers have worked really hard to make sure that these build upon each other.
Right.
But we do have it set so that it's just a specific amount of credits per department.
Well, and that's fine.
Yeah. I just want to, I want to balance, it's such a hard thing to balance both sides of those, right? To say like, yes, we really think you need to take global 10th grade here, but to graduate, you need 3.5 social studies.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
And that, to me, it was insane to force
Have
students.
seniors take a 9th grade social studies, yeah.
They were in my class for 4 years.
Why can't they take a senior social studies?
They were in my
and pass
class
that?
for 4 years. And I guarantee you, none of them failed by seniors.
Well, and in theory, shouldn't a senior social studies class be more rigorous than the 9th grade one? So if they could
I
pass
had
that.
a student who
yeah.
could teach my 9th grade social studies class. I'm sorry.
There are some classes that you have to graduate. They're not technically on there, but you have to, they're the only class, like U.S. History is the only one to have the U.S. History performance indicator that you have to graduate.
Yeah.
So at least for social studies, you need to have U.S. History, AP, honors, CP, whatever. Civics, or you keep going. And I believe world history.
I still think, and we have flexibility that we can offer students too, though, if they have a flexible pathway that they want to fulfill the U.S. History requirement in. So, I hear you that there are some places where it's a little more tied to a course, but we do still have some built-in flexibility so that we can meet students where they are if they need that flexibility.
There are lots of little intricacies and weirdnesses if you look in our course catalog. One other, when we talk about class sizes, it's important to point out, is that in some courses like Russian 3 and Russian 4, in order, because we do have kind of a set thing that there's kind of got to be 5 kids in a room to run a class, some of our teachers, to still offer that rigor, are going above and beyond and offering 2 classes at the same time in the same room, so that our kids can still have access to that rigor, and we can still meet those course requirements. So I do just want to point out that teachers are really working hard with us to balance out that budget versus rigor piece.
And PE is absolutely required. PE is one that all our students have to do. PE is something that we can offer some flexible pathways with too. So it might not be your traditional PE class, but you got to do something to get there.
Okay, so
Good to
in
point
the
out, Lynn.
essence of the agenda, are we good on the classroom size? Or
Any
do
other
we want
questions? Any
to-
other thoughts?
Yeah. Ooh, I was gonna say, because poor Coral's been sitting here.
Yep.
Waiting patiently.
I'm good, this is my night out.
I'm sorry. If we come up with any more questions in regards, I feel so sorry for you. Any more questions, like jot it in an email and ideas and we can address. So, on to that, Coral, go ahead.
All right, so.
And feel free to hang out for hours after.
Oh, yeah, no, I know. So I wanted to just get some FaceTime with you all tonight so that I could give you an update on the direction regarding the vacancy for the speech language pathologist. So you might recall that the vacancy happened, pretty unexpectedly, and the person who was in that role provided speech-language services to 3 of our schools. So that would be Wallingford, Shrewsbury, and Timoth. Unfortunately, but not unsurprisingly, we posted the position. We're really hopeful that we would get in, applicants, because I think that we all, as well as our families, would endorse that having an in-person provider is a superior service. But unfortunately, we do not have the applicants to be able to do that. So that leaves us needing to go to a Plan B. And that Plan B is one that we've utilized in the past when we've needed to, but that involves a pivot to a remote services model. And what that means is that we would need to select a vendor, and that company essentially would assign us the speech-language pathologists that we need to serve the 32 children that are currently without service. Just some things I want people to be aware of, though, in that. Serving pre-K children remotely is a special it's a special ball of wax. We can put that in its own basket. The children in pre-K that I serve through special education have extenuating needs that are not going to be met very effectively in a remote situation. So what does that mean for those children? For those children, we are sort of turfing them out a little bit. And what I mean by that is that our SLP at Clarendon, Beth Mormando, has unbelievably graciously taken a handful of those children and is serving them at Clarendon, which has just been a tremendous...
Are you saying from the other schools they're coming to Clarendon?
Yeah. We have a couple of children that I've entered into private contracts with that are being served by an organization in Rutland, which is the Center for Communication, Cognition, and Swallowing. So we've been fortunate to develop some partnership with that group. And so that leaves us just having to problem solve just a couple little remaining pre-Kers, but our intention is to not have those children be served through a remote model. So pre-K is sort of its own ball of wax. So the remaining students, K through 6, we would have a vendor who would provide their services entirely remotely. We've used this model in the past. Again, it's not what we want to do, but it is what we have to do at this point. In the event that we did attract, someone that we were going to interview and hire as our employee, we would then terminate our contract with the vendor.
We get penalized for that?
There typically is a fee. Each vendor has a fee anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 for termination of service. But something that I go over with them when I'm procuring these vendors is we kind of talk that out, and I'm pretty upfront with them, like, look, if I get an in-person applicant, I'm dropping you. Like, I'm very, very upfront. The thing with these vendors is they're actually quite used to that. That's kind of the norm in this landscape. Okay. One thing I want the board to be just aware of is that with this situation, we have to devote a support staff person to actually be in the room with each child while they're getting the service. So, like, it's not just, oh, so-and-so, just go on the computer in the corner and do your, it's not, like, the child is pulled out, they have a support person with them to make sure that the technology's functioning, to make sure that the child is engaged and paying attention, to make sure that there's no malfunctions. And also that person who does that work, they really serve as a liaison between like school staff, the provider on the screen, me to some extent, and then family. So there's a lot of like coordinating sort of liaison work that person does. If I'm being totally honest, I actually was more apprehensive about filling that position than I was finding a vendor, because vendors are everywhere. They're not, these companies are everywhere. And they love to take your money. They're like, you know, we get so many sales emails just nonstop from companies like this. So that was not, I was actually more apprehensive about finding a person to be able to do it. And I can't share too much with you tonight, but I will say that we do have a candidate who's known to you all, who's waiting in the wings that I'll be recommending for hire for that role. So that just happened to materialize very recently, and looks like that's going to work out well.
Are we pulling them from somewhere?
No, it's a new hire. So we had one remaining, believe it, it just worked out. We had one remaining paraeducator position that was unfilled at Mill River. And when it became apparent we were going to have to go to a remote model, we basically are diverting that last position now to this.
So what happens if we get a in-person and that contract goes bye-bye? What happens to her?
We'll find a place. We'll find a place.
Put them,
We've got work.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was still an
Yeah.
open position anyways.
yes.
Right.
And we're likely going to keep trying to hire for Mill River. It's just.
Oh, for sure.
This
Yeah, it just became the
was higher
priority.
priority.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carol, yeah.
Well, that's what is there an SLP at Mill River?
There's one full-time at Mill River SLP, yep.
Would it make sense to have that person be in person with the younger children and have the remote at the high school?
To some extent, I think the concern with that person is she's not practiced at that age level and felt like just perhaps a little apprehension. The other thing too, she is going to do all of our evaluations. So we got lucky in that respect. So, but it is possible she may be able to take on some of the lower complexity.
I feel your pain.
Okay.
So, you know my pain, it's so
very
funny.
hard.
Like,
yeah.
and actually, I have to give you, like, thanks, Carol. So when Carol and I worked together, Carol taught me how to do this, by the way. Because when Carol departed, it was Presence Learning was the vendor, and Carol taught me actually how to set this all up. So I just want you to know, thank you for that lesson, because it's...
And the remote with a trained para, actually, the kids kind of enjoy it.
They get into a rhythm and a routine.
And it's, you know, I mean, it's good you have the evaluations, those are better in person, but, you know, depending on the student and their needs, I agree, pre-K is hard, but the other kids kind of like it. They
got into a rhythm, and when we had to do this, was it 2 years ago, they just, kids, they're just so resilient. They just, all of a sudden, they know what to do, and they come in and they do it. And it just becomes old hat so quickly.
And what an interesting thing that we have to serve these students too. Legally, we have to. So while going virtual is nobody's preference, gosh, we got to do something to serve these kids. And I think it's an interesting era that we're moving into with all the budget challenges. Budgets go down, doesn't matter, we still have a legal requirement to serve our students on IEPs, which is an interesting place to be moving into. When, you know, seeing staffing shortage data from maybe about 2 years ago, I think we saw it at the state level. I think the Vermont Superintendents Association did a poll. SLP was #1 across the state, that all districts were saying that's the one we're having a real tough time with.
It's been that way for 50 years.
It's only gotten worse, yeah.
Coral, I might have missed this, but how many students for those schools are we talking about?
32 total right now, and that number could fluctuate up or down as circumstances change.
Including the ball of wax.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
So when do you need to get on the agenda for that?
So we have procured, we're required to procure 3 vendors. I absolutely am going to be recommending to you again VocoVision, which was the company that we have used previously. We're getting a discount because we're a preferred customer. Their rate is comparable to the other vendors. It's about $5 cheaper. I will say that with VocoVision, they've made everything so seamless for us. And they're wonderful to deal with as an organization. Just very, very easy. So I would recommend that we go with them again, and we do have that existing partnership, and they've come through for us before. So my recommendation when we get to it will be that, probably do that the next meeting, I would think. Their rate is...
Personnel that day.
Yes.
Those we haven't traditionally brought through personnel.
No. If the position that she...
The para. Yeah. Sorry.
We gotta do the 2-step.
The contracts, The para will bring the contract will bring forward. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
We can add that to agenda building?
Yep, got it.
Just trying to plan ahead, Coral.
Yeah, no. And just as far as funding goes, we're looking probably at an hourly rate for this person of around $95 an hour. I would assume they will assign us 1 SLP for the caseload. In the past, I've had to talk with them about giving us 2 providers, but I don't think that we're there. So it would probably be one SLP doing our services, and we'll be pulling the funding for it, from special ed, from our salary and benefits line. And, it's hard to estimate. Will we be doing this all year? Will we be doing this a month? We just couldn't say, but we'll get it in place for the year.
Technically, we're almost halfway through the year anyway, so.
It's hard to believe. Yeah, no, I know, it's crazy.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at. Just FYI, so a letter from me went out to families, just letting them know this is where we're at. They're going to get another letter here, letting them know, who the vendor will be, and from there, it's just making sure that they are receiving the information that they would like to receive about this. So.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we're on to committee, and the first one's personnel.
Good.
You good? We got nothing?
No, we don't.
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Which is November
6th.
at 6:30.
6:30.
You doing it at 6:30?
Yeah.
30. We'll have one para for you.
What? Yeah.
Policy.
Policy, that's me. So I bring to the group, for a first read, new policy H2, spectators at school events. And I would look for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
And a second? Got Pat down there.
Yeah.
Any discussion?
Is this, you said it was a new policy?
New.
I'll just share, or like Jody, if you want to jump in, but what we heard from Jody too, like this is a way to just support admin in schools with their procedure if anything was to come up with spectators at events. Is that a good?
Yeah, I think that's a great summary. So we have found in the last, 5 years an increase in occasional incidents at events involving spectators, and we just want to make sure that, like anything else, if we have clearly written expectations, that's helpful for everybody. But our administrators thought it would be easier if we had those expectations more as a procedural thing, so that if we do need to update those, it's easier to update.
but our ask was looking at models from other districts to have a kind of a basic board policy that then provides the ability to back up the procedural piece.
So just to go along with that, right now, there are guidelines in all of the handbooks and everything like that, and this is more of the board agrees with this, and we're standing behind the administration, and if something were to go awry, we give our full support saying, so-and-so, you're no longer welcome at football games. So sorry.
Yeah. It gives administrators firmer ground to stand on because there's a policy that supports their actions, where right now their actions would not be supported by a policy.
Okay, exactly. Makes sense.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? That's everybody. Thank you.
So that'll get in the Herald. Good news, we've got a 5 Wednesday month, so we'll have the timing to get this in the Herald for the November meeting. So we'll do second read then.
And our next meeting is November 12th at 5:30.
Okay. Buildings and grounds.
That's me again. We haven't had a meeting since our last full board. Our next meeting is October 29th at 5 p.m.
Perfect. Community engagement.
We had a meeting tonight. Just want to remind board members that community engagement is the job of all board members, not just the committee. The budget forum is tomorrow, 3:30 to 4:30. November 16th, there's a craft fair at Clarendon, if people want to attend that. And December 7th, there's a craft fair or holiday fair at Wallingford. And October 23rd, there's a choral concert at 6:30. So if board members want to get out and enjoy what's going on in their schools, those would be good dates. We had a discussion about email responses. I don't know, and we talked about just having sort of a generic email response, whether, I think, Andrea, we decided you would be the one that would respond. But it would, we wanted to include, we thought it would be a good idea to include some information regarding the fact that all the board members can't join into that discussion because of open meeting law requirements, and also giving some advice about where they could go to have their question answered. So I think, Brian, you're gonna...
Do you want me to, I can draft some things.
Yeah, Brian was gonna...
Put in materials to talk about next time
Yeah, next
around?
time, yeah, some ideas.
Okay. And did you mention this, Carol? The reason we were having that conversation was because community engagement asked me to draft some sample responses for how to respond to the public, just more generally.
Yes, sorry, I forgot about that.
No, that's fine. I'm going to put, I didn't know if you had said it or not.
No, I haven't said it yet.
I'm going to put that in the materials packet for next meeting, because community engagement was happy with that and wants to share it with the rest of the board. And that's where we had a conversation about, let's go a little further and have some draft responses for the spokesperson when the community does. And I think that was a really good point, and I want to say it again because I thought it was such a good point that Carol had, that when community emails the board and they get one response back, they might be thinking, how come I didn't hear from anybody else?
Right.
Well, it might be because the board is trying to adhere to open meeting law, so to just make it
And a lot of
clear
our
to
community
people.
do not
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Right.
So to make it clear, like, hey, you're just hearing from me because we can't all respond to you in a discussion, because then we break open meeting law.
And they should know, and I'm pretty sure that most of the community that does reach out knows that they will only get a response from the chair.
Yeah.
But, and they do know that, so, I'm gonna stop right there.
So we'll include some of that stuff next meeting. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, so that's something we're kind of working on as a committee, is how to really make sure people who contact the board feel like they're getting a response that's useful to them. And our next meeting is November 20th at 6 o'clock. I think that's
Finance.
anything else.
I think Brunson.
The Interact Club's having our second annual Veterans Day dinner at the Little Red Schoolhouse in Wallingford on November 9th, 5 to 7. It's support the Interact Club. I invited you guys last year, and none of you showed up. And I was very disappointed as a soon-to-be voter.
Say the date again.
November 9th, 5 to 7 p.m., Little Red Schoolhouse in Wallingford.
And it's spaghetti?
It is marinated chicken and cornbread and sides.
Oh, sounds great.
Would you prefer us to be diners or volunteers? Do you have all the volunteers you need? Okay. Okay.
Well, I like to eat.
What was the time again?
5 to 7, $15 a head. Bring your friends and yourselves.
Okay.
Okay, on to finance.
Finance.
We do have the pay orders.
Yep,
We have our
absolutely.
payroll warrants, October 11th, in the amount of $749,799.95. I'll move to accept this payroll warrant. Do I have a second? Carol?
Yep.
All in favor?
Sorry. Just pulling it.
And we have accounts payable warrants. General fund in the amount of $383,008.19. General fund in the amount of $339.79. ASP in the amount of $2,762.68. And lunch in the amount of $7,884.48 for a total of $400,995.14. And we have no student activity warrants at this time. I'll move to approve. Carol
second.
Carol seconds. All in favor? All right, it's everybody. For updates, I am working on getting out another communication on kind of where we are in our budget cycle. We've had, at our budget meeting from October 1st, some of this we went over in our last board meeting. So we've asked for a 0%.
0, 2, and 3, I think.
2%.
3 point something, that was the rollover,
Yeah, rollover budget for 3.47, and we're looking at a 0 and a 2% increase. So we encourage folks to come to the next finance meeting, community to come to the next finance meeting.
All are invited, not just committee members. Right, Len?
Yep. And that meeting will be on October 29th at 5:30 PM, immediately following Buildings and Grounds. And we, of course, have a budget forum tomorrow at 3:30 in Mill River.
How did the last
We had just a few members at the last budget forum.
I think we had an awesome conversation, and we had a conversation for an hour. We really did, which I think is always, no matter the turnout, we can always talk for an hour about budget. I think that's a really interesting thing, because there are a heck of a lot of pieces of it.
I think that's all I've got for finance.
Thank you, Steve.
Personnel meeting.
Yes, you did. Yes. Yes, you did.
Okay.
Any other legal business we can think of?
Oh, yeah, do we want to talk about any of the emails that came up?
Were you thinking the intervention?
Yeah, so we
suggestion?
received the
Yep.
email about a math interventionist. And then also there was the ongoing one, Andrea, that I don't know if like we've talked about it all, or if we need to, about school enrollment and things like that.
Oh, and I don't know that I'm aware of that one.
Oh, maybe you weren't CC'd on those.
No.
That was the sports related?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah,
focused around sports.
I've dealt with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been, we're good.
Okay. Yeah, did everyone get to see the one about the math intervention? I didn't know if everyone.
I think interestingly, at our budget forum, we were asked what a wish list would be for the district if we were adding things. Math intervention was what I mentioned, because I think that's the logical thing to add. I think what the finance committee and the full board needs to weigh is how to add that and what that looks like, and there are some things I could bring to finance. If folks are interested in seeing that proposal, I can bring that to the finance meeting, absolutely. Just so we know what that looks like.
And I was, just to circle back around to the other email that was going around regarding student enrollment and athletics, I wonder if we shouldn't kind of reach out to that person and...
We have.
And see, well, I guess as a board member, I would like to know what his suggestions are around why he thinks that
There isn't really any suggestion.
Well,
But, if there are things we could do differently.
yeah, I mean, I guess I just wonder, are there things?
I can
And I
reach
guess
out to
from,
him. He's my neighbor.
sitting from the financial, on the finance committee, I'm just wondering, is it a matter of financial support?
No.
Is it
It's not.
Is it a matter of, well, I was thinking about, is it because our coaches are paid, I mean, I just
No,
want to know
it's
what
not
are,
financial.
what kinds of things might be contributing
And I feel
to the
comfortable.
concerns, that's all. I mean, he obviously has concerns, he reached out. I actually had another parent reach out to me, and I made suggestions around coming to the finance committee, et cetera, et cetera.
And anybody that you want to send to me, to athletic director, to principal, we'll all sit down and have a conversation. We're
And
never
I
gonna.
have daily conversations with Kim and Mary, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll all make time and sit down and listen to feedback. Absolutely.
We're good with it.
Okay.
Andrea,
Yes?
I just have a question, and I hope it's okay, because a lot of you probably already know this, but just as learning. So like with the heating stuff here at Shrewsbury, just because we were shown it. So like buildings and grounds doesn't meet for a while, but that obviously, that's like, how does board need to approve anything there, or is it just like, all right, let's get this heat going?
Emergency things will come to you after.
Okay.
So that's actually a really good question. You're going to see 3 quotes, and you're going to get a lot of information, like Coral's going to bring you 3 quotes next meeting to talk about virtual services for speech language. We have provisions where if something's an emergency and we have to do something today or else, that we can exercise the things we need to put things in place, and we'll bring it to you when we're done. So that is a scenario where we're not waiting and going, oh no, if only. If we needed an emergency board meeting, we'd call an emergency board meeting. And we'd jump B&G because everybody on B&G is on the full board, and anything B&G does would have to go to the full board. So if we needed to, we'd call a special meeting, but we don't need to yet. We can still work within what we have and then bring it to you after.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's a
helpful.
great question. Because that's not something that normally happens. That doesn't come to you too often.
So the last question I have under legal thing, and I probably could have said it at any point in time. Who do we have from the board going to the VSBA thing?
Ooh.
I don't think anybody.
Because I heard
Okay.
like 2-3 people talking about it, but I
Yeah, I
didn't know
decided,
who had to sign up.
decided to,
Okay. When or if, like, when somebody does, can I please know so that I can have it on my records of who went?
And just a heads up for folks, if you don't know this, you have a board fund
Yeah.
There's a little amount of money.
We get reimbursed.
It's not huge, but there's a little amount of money to cover if you did want to go to that conference, so.
Yep.
If that's
Yes.
changes anybody's thinking.
Okay. You have agenda items started?
On our schedule, we're looping back around to Mill River, and we're going to have a Mill River department update. Sean is still working with department chairs to figure out who that department's going to be, but I've got Mill River penciled in. We're going to have a contract from Coral. We're going to have H2 for a second read. That's all I've got. So that's actually a little bit.
And we are back at
agenda.
Mill River.
Yeah, back at Mill River.
Okay.
Lightest agenda we've probably had
Careful.
since summer. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Since summer. Well, because we don't
You can add
have,
some stuff if you want.
often we have two presentations, like tonight we had Shrewsbury and we had class size enrollment. We've only got Mill River as a presentation for next. So if anything pops up, we can add it. I'll be drafting agenda and communicating with Andrea like early next week to finalize a draft, and we'll get it to you. So if anything pops up between now and about next Wednesday, let us know, and we can get it on there. So.
Okay, do we need an executive session?
None I'm aware of.
All right, so I adjourn at 8:53.